So I wanted to give an update here about how this COVID-19 virus is affecting people that are in this community, the nomad community. Hi everyone. So a couple of days ago, I stopped for fuel. It's really windy out here, and I hope that you're not hearing it. I stopped for fuel, and as I was filling up, I noticed dripping on the ground. So my first thought was, oh, it's just water or something from rain. And then I got down and smelled it and know it was diesel. And I looked and I can actually see the staining on this flap right here. So my filler neck is here. I was seeing the dripping coming down on the ground right here as I was filling the tank. So I got up under there and looked, and the filler neck right under here, if you can see that, you can see the hose clamps on it. The neck, the rubber part of it is moist, and so it's definitely leaking as I'm filling. So when I got back to the camp here, I threw that second hose clamp on it, hoping that it was just needed to be snugged up. But while I was doing that, up on the top side of the hose, I was able to reach up to the top side and I can feel where it's all cracked. So it's, as I'm filling, it's seeping from the top and coming around the hose and then dripping on the ground. So I stopped into the local shop here in Quartzsite and told him what was going on. And he said, all right, well, let's just get that piece of rubber hose. He looked it up. It's 1.5 inch diameter. So he got the hose in. I stopped in there yesterday. He's got the hose in, so I'm going up there right now. I'm going to leave him the truck. They're going to replace the rubber hose that goes from the filler neck to the tank. And I'm also going to have them do an oil and filter change while I'm there. I've always done my own oil changes. Here, I don't have a drainage container. The 7.3 takes 14 quarts of oil. 15 quarts of oil. So you need a 4-gallon drainage container to hold the spent oil. I don't have that. The last time I did one, I went to Walmart and bought, will you give me a break here for a minute, dude? I went to Walmart and bought a drainage container and drained all the oil into it, and then stopped at an oil change shop and said, here, I need you to dispose of this oil, and you can just throw the container out. I didn't want it, a dirty, big, like 5-gallon drainage container with oil in it. I didn't want to carry that around. So I'm going to have them do an oil and filter change also. So we're getting ready. We're packing up, and we're going to go over to the shop there today, and hopefully this filler neck issue works out without any problems, and that they're able to replace the hose easily. The tank's got about 40 gallons of fuel in it. There's no way we're dropping that thing to get to it. So hopefully they can do this really easily. All right. Okay, I'll update you as soon as I'm done at the shop. So I wanted to give an update here about how this COVID-19 virus is affecting people that are in this community, the nomad community. So I think that there's two schools of thought here that you could go with. One of them being that we are in really good position to ride this out because we don't have a lot of contact. Look around me here. You can see some rigs, but the recommended 6 to 10 feet social distancing, obviously we're meeting that suggestion here pretty easily. Now, I do go and talk with my friends that are around here. Actually, last night, a friend of mine cooked some tuna melts for dinner and had me over to her rig, which was really nice. It's great to have some cooked food that isn't, like canned food and soups and things like that. But so I do have some close contact with folks, but we're all living these same conditions. We're all separated out here. And then the other school of thought is that we're in bad shape because we're separated from resources. As stores get more and more emptied out and supplies get more and more limited, we're that much more separated from those resources in that supply chain. I'm going to go with that first school of thought, that we are in really good shape because we are separated just from the context of how we live out here. We're separated from big city and large groups of people and large gatherings. We're definitely separated from all that. And so I think that we're in good shape to ride this out. My own personal take on this, I'm not a news watcher. I don't do a lot of keeping up with current events, things like that, and I've been that way for years. So I wasn't really keeping up with how this was developing, and in fact, it was probably 2 weeks ago, I was texting back and forth with my daughter in New York, and she said, "What do you think about this coronavirus thing?" And I didn't have a lot of information. I said, I think it's being overblown. It's just another flu. And so it's always, babies and elderly are at risk from the flu. The only difference with this one, I told her, is that they don't have any treatment for it yet because it's new. Fast forward about another week, and I kind of started changing what I was telling her. I started watching some news clips and started seeing, oh my gosh, this is a little bit more serious than I had realized. And she's a college student. She works a part-time job at a restaurant there, and so at her job they stopped. They only had pickup service, so people couldn't come into the restaurant and eat anymore, and she's a hostess, so that affected her job and she couldn't really work anymore. School, I didn't even think to ask her what they've done with school, so I'm gonna have to ask her that. It's spring break right now. So she's out of class for that, but I don't know what they're going to do as far as restarting classes. So I told her because she can't work and she's got some bills she has to pay, so I gave her some money, put some money into her account because I don't want her to have that added stress on top of what's going on. She's being isolated from her grandmother, my mom, who's back in town there. Her husband, my stepfather, he had gone into the hospital, not coronavirus related. He had some kidney problems, and so he's in the hospital, and no visitors are allowed in the hospital. They've got the hospital closed down, so my daughter can't go see her grandma at her house and can't go see her papa, who's in the hospital, because that's been closed up. So I didn't want her to have extra stresses, so I put some money into her account to ease that off of her mind. So here, I drove up to Parker just a few days ago, to get some groceries. There's a Walmart up in Parker. And went into the Walmart and found a lot of empty shelves. And I was, that was my first real contact. That kind of hit me in the face. I went to the aisle where all the soups and canned foods are and wasn't able to get anything. The soups were totally gone. So I got a bunch of lunch meats and loaves of bread for sandwiches. And so I have food, but wasn't able to get what I normally do. And I think in another few days, I'm going to drive back up there and get some more foods. So while I was on that trip, I stopped to fill up the truck with diesel, and noticed that I had diesel leaking from the filler neck. Now, this is the, where I put the diesel in, and it has this rubber kind of holder here that keeps this stationary. Well, this is really deteriorated. I hope you can see that. It's all cracked, so it's allowing this to not be held as rigidly as it should be. And where this metal pipe connects up with the rubber hose, it's about 1.5 inches diameter. So it goes metal from here for about 15 inches, and then it's a rubber hose that goes the rest of the way to the tank. And where that rubber hose was clamped to this metal portion, at the top, it's cracked. It's very old, obviously. It's probably the original one. And so it was seeping from the top of the hose. It was seeping down and then dripping off. And I developed a pretty good puddle on the ground at the gas station. And you can see the staining here. I hope you can see it on this mud flap where it was dripping. So, if it had done it before and I didn't notice, it's very likely, probably did. So I stopped filling, and I went over to the local shop here where I had the ball joints done, and I told him, I said, hey, this is what happened. He said, oh, well, let's just replace that section of rubber hose. So he was able to get some fuel rated 1.5 inch hose. I took it in yesterday and they replaced it, no problem. The hose was a little pricey. He's like, man, I couldn't believe the cost of it. And whatever, it is what it is. It's got to be replaced. So now I'm good for another bunch of years. It's not going to crack again for a long, long time. I had him do an oil and filter change while I was there. Now, I've always done my own oil changes. Now, those of you that know the Ford Powerstroke, you know that it takes 15 quarts of oil, basically 4 gallons of oil. So the last time I did my oil change was when I'd first gotten out into this area, after driving across the country with my buddy. It was up in Parker, so I went to the Walmart. I bought a drain pan that would hold, I think it was a 5-gallon capacity drain pan for oil, and bought my oil, got Rotella and a Motorcraft filter, and I pulled into a parking lot and crawled up under the truck, and I did the oil change and drained it all out. Then I took the full container of drained oil, used oil, and took it to a service shop up there, and I said, hey, I need you to dispose of this oil and just throw that container out when you're done. I didn't want to carry around this, the thing was huge. It's flat and it's very large diameter, and it would have had dirty oil all in it. I didn't want to carry that around, no way. It was only like $13. It wasn't expensive, but you add that together with trying to dispose of that, I would have to drive up to Walmart again and buy that. And the cost, I didn't save a ton of money, buying all that oil and the filter and the drainage container, another $25, and I'm not doing it myself. I'm having it done at the shop. And they charged me, actually, the price they charged me here was less than what they wanted for the oil change back at my buddy's shop at the Ford Lincoln dealership back in New York. So their price was good here. So I had them do the oil change. I had them put that fuel filler hose on. And I also asked him to educate me on tire pressure. Now, my back tires on this truck, I'm going to say, have been a problem since I bought this truck. When I bought the truck down in Arkansas, a year ago this month, actually, in March of last year, drove from New York. I rented a car, and there's a video about this really early in I think it might be my first video, actually, where I drove to Arkansas and bought the truck. Rented an SUV, left in a snowstorm that had happened in New York. Drove, it was about 1,200 miles down to Arkansas, met the guy, bought the truck, returned the rental car, and then drove the truck back. Now, I just got in the truck. I asked him, will it make it? He said, yep, it'll make it. So I just got in it and started driving. The service engine soon light came on after about 15 miles. And I checked the oil. It was a little bit low, so I bought a four quart of Rotella at a truck stop and topped it off. It took about 2 quarts. So I played the game of the service engine light coming on and going off all the way on the drive home. So it would come on, it would stay on for hours, I would stop, it would be off for hours, then it would come back on. And then once I got home, I made it home. And when I got home and noticed that the tires in the back looked a little low, well, I went and got a tire gauge that I could read with them and found that one of the back tires was at 25 pounds and one of them was at 9 pounds. And then the other 2 were in the 50 and 60 pound range. They're supposed to be 80 pounds. So I drove from Arkansas to New York, 1,200 miles on almost basically flat tires. 2 of the back 4 were basically flat and the other 2 weren't that much better, but closer to full. So yesterday when this was at the shop, I said, what should I be putting the tire pressures at? I said, when I read them cold in the morning, they're at like 50 and 60. He said, no, that's too low. They're supposed to be at 80 when they're cold. Now, when they get warm, they heat up and they expand and the pressure goes up. But the manufacturers figure all that in and they say when they're stone cold, put them at 80. And it doesn't matter if they go up to 110 while you're driving in a hot day. That's the way they're designed. So I said, can you please fill these things up to 80 pounds of pressure? He said, no problem. So when I picked up the truck yesterday and I got in, it felt like I was jacked up in the back. I actually had to adjust the tilt of my steering wheel so that I could still see the speedometer. It changed it that much. They were that low. So it drives, I immediately notice an improvement in its rolling, So I got the fuel filler fixed, I got the oil changed, and I got my back tires all pumped up. So we're back here at the camp and just trying to make sure I have enough supplies so that I can continue to be isolated out here away from folks. I've got the hand sanitizer right next to right in the coffee, the cup holder in the front of the truck. So I think I said it earlier, in a few days I'm going to drive up to Parker again and go to Walmart. I'm going to try to get there early in the morning before they get wiped out. I know Walmarts have changed their hours so that they can restock better. So hopefully I'll be able to get some items that I want. So that's where we're at as far as COVID-19 and living in an ambulance. Again, I do think that being out here isolated is the best thing, away from large gatherings of people, because that's how this disease is spread, by people that don't even know they have it yet, passing it on to other folks. So Lefty and I are going to ride it out here. Okay, everyone, thank you for watching, and I do hope that everybody is safe and secure and keeping themselves well fed. I hope everybody is staying in contact with your friends and family electronically. That's what I'm doing, so that I know every day I speak with my daughter and my mom, and that everybody is doing well back there, and just continuing to keep us well fed out here and secure. So all of you do the same, and I will see you all soon. Take care, everyone.